salutations to everybody out there in podcast land. This is the Judo Chop Suey Podcast, and I'm your host on this special birthday edition of the Judo Chop Suey Podcast, Judo Dave Roman. Why is it a special birthday edition? Because today is my 111th birthday! Actually, no, I'm just turning 44, but I feel like 111 some days after training. It is January 18th, 2019. Happy New Year to all of you. Today is actually my birthday at the time of this recording. And on this episode of the Judo Chop Suey Podcast, I bring on Judo Joe Kaiser. I know you guys have been excited for him to come back on the show. We always have a great conversation, and we are going to have a great conversation once again. We're going to talk about judo promotions at the club, and I want to get his take on how it feels promoting his own students for the very first time. Some of them are new students of his since he started taking over the club, or since he took over the club. We're also going to talk about his perspective on learning Nage no Kata with me. And we're going to have a pretty good conversation about, I'm really looking forward to this, a conversation about Jiu Jitsu, fashion and the lifestyle within Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I'm really looking forward to that because we had a conversation off air, if you want to call this on air. We had a conversation off air about that, and I wanted to bring that conversation into the podcast. But first, before I get into all of that, there's a bit of judo news that I wanted to talk about. This will probably be more pertinent to judoka in the United States. And just a forewarning, this is probably going to be a longer than average podcast. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you want to jump to certain topics, please be sure to look at the show notes, and you'll be able to see what exactly we're going to be talking about on the podcast. I know I already just covered it, but in case you want to jump around, look at the show notes and look at the timestamps. I always put the timestamps on the topics of conversation that I have on this episode or on this podcast, and this episode will be no exception. So getting into the bit of judo news that I'm really excited to talk about, there is a grappling event in the United States called Fight2Win. Now, admittedly, I've heard of this, but I really don't know much about it. And this is a pretty big event. They make it look like a big deal. It probably is a big deal, but they certainly put on the big lights, the cameras, the streaming, the crowds, the pizzazz. They make these events look like the Super Bowl of grappling. I mean, the quality is just top notch, and the excitement seems to be genuinely there. For the people that watch the streaming events, there's live commentary as well going on throughout the match. So it's just the quality and effort and production put on for these events is really something else. Certainly more pizzazz than what you see at, like, let's say, the U.S. Judo Nationals, for example. And these are, as I understand it, professional events. So these fighters, these competitors that go to these events are getting paid to win. And as I understand it, this is put on by flowgrappling.com, and they actually have a subscription service that if you wanted to watch this at any time, you pay a certain amount a month, and they've got a little cash flow going in, and I think to charge the amount that they're charging, they must have quite a viewer base. And now, this is largely Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi and no-gi competitions, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they are now introducing a judo competition with these Fight2Win contests, and I think it's really interesting what they're doing here, and this could be a real boon for the judo community in the United States. I hope that people that matter in judo in the United States and not ham and eggers like myself, I hope those people are paying attention, because judo needs this. And let me clarify, judo needs this in this country. I mean, look, I know around the world, a contest like this is small potatoes compared to the IJF World Tour, and that's also professional judo, and the best of the best compete in those events. But for the United States, we need judo on a larger scale. And you know what? I hope that the guys that are competing go out there with gis and a bunch of patches, wearing a rash guard, mouthpieces, and all this kind of good stuff, because we need more presentation in the United States. And look, I mean, take a look at me. I mean, I'm still kind of sort of the only guy that does a judo-specific podcast, at least in the United States. You know, I figured when I started this 2 years ago that maybe other people would take up the mantle and I'd retire this hideous podcast. But lo and behold, 2 years later, I'm still kind of the only guy doing it. And that's not to take away from the Judo Edit out in Australia and the original Judo podcast hosted by James Austin, who's out in the UK. I think in terms of people in the United States, I'm still the only guy actually doing it, something judo-specific. Speaking of which, a shout-out to Dr. Anne-Maria DeMars and the More Than Ordinary podcast. She's referenced my podcast on her podcast a couple times, and I'd like to return the favor. So for those of you out there, Dr. Anne-Maria DeMars does have her own podcast, and it's definitely worth a listen. It's not only about judo. She talks a lot about business and her company and the things that she's doing down in Chile. So go ahead and give that a listen. But getting back to what I was talking about, the Fight2Win professional judo, I want to take a look at I want to talk about the rule sets and discuss what I like and don't like. So I'm going to run this down real quick. The matches are going to be 7 minutes long. According to the Flow Grappling website, the first person to ippon wins, or a submission at any time ends the bout. The match continues after the ippon throw is scored. No restarts except for repositioning if the competitors go out of bounds. 30 seconds of ground fighting allowed before restart unless there is a submission attack. All arm locks and chokes are allowed. Picking up and slamming from guard or a submission is counted as ippon. Let's see. Pulling guard is not allowed, but flying attacks such as arm bars and triangles are permitted. Pins and hold downs do not score. There are no gripping penalties and leg grabs are allowed. Now, most of these rules I like, except the one I really take exception to is the first person to ippon wins, because, and this is more the traditionalist in me, when it comes to judo, the ippon is everything. And if you diminish the ippon, then to me, it stops being judo and it becomes something else. And if you want to have a contest that you grapple in the gi and throws that are ippon worthy matter, but they don't end the match, if you want to have that kind of a contest, by all means, have a contest and have a rule set like that. Just don't call it judo, because to me, it's not judo if you can't win the match without an ippon. And maybe that's an old school traditional mindset, and I know the people at Flow Grappling are trying to do something new. But I think the body slamming, bone rattling ippon, if that's how they're going to measure ippon, I think that should end the match. And you know, the thing with judo is that you have submissions, and of course, you know, in a quote unquote real fight, a choke is going to end a fight. And in a quote unquote real fight, an arm bar that breaks the arms is going to end the fight, or a leg lock that breaks the knees or something like that is going to end the fight. And in boxing, you know, the knockout punch is going to end the fight if he's out for 10 seconds. But in judo, we're not throwing on concrete in our judo competitions. We're not throwing on concrete or surfaces that are going to cause a knockout. But that true body slamming, bone rattling ippon on a concrete, that's going to end a fight. And to have to do two of those in a contest, I just don't think it's the right way to go. And maybe they have to try and appeal to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu crowd, which is most of the, not only the competitors, but the viewers, the consumers. That's going to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu crowd. And maybe because they're so used to seeing, you know, throws being diminished in their contests, that they have to do something different. I don't know. I mean, look, those big-time ippon are very, very hard to do. And to make competitors have to do two of those, it's just going to be easier for them to go on the ground and try and submit from there. So it's my understanding that Flow Grappling consulted with Travis Stevens and Rick Hahn and Jason Morris to come up with these rules. And I'm sure they debated a lot over these rules. And look, I like most of them. I do, with the exception of the Tui Pon, I do like a lot of the way that these matches are going to be structured, and I think it's going to be fast-paced. I just hope that with the lack of gripping penalties, that you don't have a bunch of guys out there just grabbing the belt and stiff arming out there, preventing any movement or entries whatsoever. Because if you give excellent judoka free reign on gripping, they're going to take it, and they can make what could be an exciting match very boring. And take, for instance, the very first match that's going to kick off this event is going to be former Olympian Ryan Reeser, who represented Team USA, competing against a fellow by the name of Javier Torres, who was also a judoka for the Mexican national team. So you've got two former high-level players competing in this event, and if you give them free reign on gripping, it could be really exciting or really boring. I just don't know. I'm really looking forward to seeing this, though. They've got the subscription. I probably will subscribe just to see this inaugural event. And thankfully, they banned pulling guard. In the original rule set, they were going to allow it, but maybe somebody convinced them otherwise. Because if you allow pulling guard in a judo tournament, well, again, then it stops being judo, and it's just, you could call it something else, but. Anyway, Fight2Win. They have events all over the country, and it's my understanding that you can apply to be featured in one of these events if you are a black belt. And I have no idea what the entry fees are or anything like that. I know you have to apply, and they have to approve of your application to be able to compete in one of these events. I know locally, well, it's not really so local, but they're going to have one in Fort Lauderdale, I believe, way out in May. I'm not 100% sure on that. So that's as local as it gets for me. I'm not going to make a 3-hour drive to watch a grappling event, especially if I can watch it from the comfort of my own home. But anyway. Now, before I bring on my friend Judo Joe Kaiser, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people that have sent me email, and I have not responded. I feel terrible about that. But between the holidays, work, the new year, training, it's been really difficult to get back to some of you people, but I appreciate the emails. I will write each and every one of you back. It's just going to take me a little more time, so my apologies, but I appreciate all the listener reaction. If you want to shoot me an email, you can shoot it to judochopsueyshow@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter @LaVitaJudoka and on Instagram @LaVitaJudoka. My Instagram is awesome. All right, enough of that. I'd like to bring on my friend, my training partner, and head coach of the judo club at Ybor City Jiu Jitsu, Mr. Judo Joe Kaiser.
Welcome back.
Joe, welcome back to the Judo Chop Suey Podcast. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us again. I really appreciate it. So what's been going on with you in training and life and otherwise? What's been going on? Catch the listeners up.
I know everybody's been waiting to have me back on to see what's going on in my life, but everything's going great. Got the job going good, personal life going great, and obviously very happy at the club with the judo program. Been going excellent.
So tell us a little bit more about the judo program. What's been going on since the last time we've spoken?
Well, since the last time we've spoken, the class has definitely grown. A lot of the, our jiu-jitsu players from the jiu-jitsu club have really taken a liking to judo and, kept coming and training. And actually yesterday, as you know, since you were there, we had our promotion class and had some visitors from other clubs. And I think, we've done a few of those open mats at Ybor City Jiu-Jitsu Club. Shameless plug right there.
Yeah.
But I think yesterday was probably my favorite. And not just because of the belt promotions, but the rondori that we had and the play with all those different players. I think it was the best one we've done.
Yeah, and not only that was it's funny when you guys when that club has these type of things for judo, more and more people show up. Now, I know there's places around the world where having 6 or 7 black belts and 30 people on the mat is a normal thing, but for me, that was probably the most amount of judoka on a single mat space that I've been a part of. And I mean, that mat was full, and that's not a small mat space by my standards anyway.
No, it's probably one of the larger mat spaces, definitely for judo in the area. There's definitely some big BJJ schools in the area.
Right.
But yeah, for judo, I don't know of any that has a larger mat space than us. And yeah, and to your point, I think we have 6-7 black belts yesterday. And to be honest, there's a few that didn't make it this time that usually come. That
right.
Had some other things come up that they couldn't make it. So we would have had even more. But yeah, to your point, yeah, that's probably the most judoka we've ever had on that mat.
Oh, you think so?
It's got to be close.
Yeah, because you had the you had the open mat training session just a couple months ago back in December, and they were about, I think, 25, 26, and I counted 30 plus, and there were a few kids that showed up that I was surprised. They're always welcome, but as far as adults, probably the most adults that I've seen on a single mat space.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what was it like for you? So, it's my understanding this is your first promotion as a head instructor, right?
Yeah. So there's some. So we had one belt promotion class before, but a lot of those students were initially students of our old instructor, Dave Middendorf, and so it was kind of like yeah, this is the rank you earn. Most of their instruction had come from Dave, but there were a few students yesterday that were actually students from mine from day one as white belt that got their first and some second promotion. So, yeah, it was very interesting, just to see, because it this isn't like patting myself on the back or anything, but it's good to see that students that you took from their very beginning and just being able to monitor their progress and where they've come, and it was a really great feeling, actually.
That's really great. It's almost like you're put it in some way like your judo children. And
yeah, that's a fair.
See them, kind of grow up a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption. Yeah, or a fair assessment, I should say. Yeah. They I was a proud judoka yesterday. Proud instructor. Yeah, there's some guys, and I'm sure we'll get into talk a little bit about a few of them, but yeah, very proud.
So it's my understanding that, some of these were really overdue for promotions. What took so long to get around to it?
It was really just timing. And I say, so we had recently we were looking to do it before the end of the year. But we had a BJJ promotion class that was also overdue. Normally at Ybor City Jiu Jitsu, we like to do one promotion at a time, meaning one guy's getting promoted, get his recognition, rather than promoting a bunch at one time. But they were also behind on promotions, so we did have like a large promotion class, and I didn't want to I didn't want to overlap that. I didn't want to steal from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some of those same people were getting promoted in judo as well. So we wanted them to have their own space to get that promotion. And so me and one of the other instructors, Victor Ortega, who is a big help for me, especially on the administrative end of getting all this stuff done, we decided we'll wait till after the first of the year. There's definitely some overdue promotions, and we'll do a big class and invite some other clubs to come over, and that so that's what we did yesterday, and it couldn't have went any better, really.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. So my question to you, now that you're the head judo instructor there, and it's your program and such, how did you evaluate these students? Because and I'm a big proponent of giving students the rank they deserve. I'm not a big believer in, especially when promotions are overdue. Like in some cases, some of these guys were maybe 2 years overdue.
Yeah.
That's not a point of criticism by any means. I'm just saying some guys might have actually, their last promotion was 2 years ago.
Right.
So you had made a decision on some of these guys were going to get bumped up, a couple of ranks, a couple of Q ranks higher. So I'm curious, how did you come to evaluate certain students over others? And the reason why I asked that, because to me it's easy. Oh, just give them the next rank. That's easy to do. Even if it's been a couple of years, just give them the next rank, because in your mind or whatever, you have to go through each and every single rank. I don't personally believe that. So how did you make that decision? I know you and Victor, who helps you out at the club, made those decisions together. How did you make those evaluations?
It was really on an individual basis, right? There were some that we, on most of the ranks, we agreed, hey, this person, this is the rank that they deserve, and this is where they're at. And then there were some where there was some back and forth. There were some people that, got their first promotion yesterday, that really could have maybe, like you said, been 2 promotions up. Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, it just came down to what's fair to the judoka, the player themselves, right? You don't want to, especially if these folks are planning on competing, right? You don't want to thrust them too far ahead because maybe they don't have the mat time. Yeah, they've got the talent, because we've got guys there that maybe got their first promotion yesterday, but could hang with 2 or 3 ranks above them mm-hmm. on the mat. But is it really a disservice to, promote somebody that far ahead based on their skill alone, because I think with judo, there's a lot of things that, at least in my mind, that go with the promotion, it's not just what you do on the mat, but it's also your knowledge, right?
Absolutely. I completely agree.
And that's probably the biggest factor between, does this guy deserve, or this lady deserve, a yellow belt or a green belt? Well, their talent level, yeah, they could get on there with any green belt, but do they know everything that other green belt knows? Someone who's training judo maybe 3-4 times a week, getting the mat time in, and also the vernacular and just the history, everything that goes along with judo, right? So I think at the end of the day, we just decided that way. Like, okay, yeah, this person could be a green belt, but let's give them their yellow belt and make sure that, that when they do get their green belt, that they know everything that a green belt should know. And I think that's where we're at the end of the day, where we came down to the ranks. So
yeah, I agree with you. And I think this is one of the big, being in jiu-jitsu over the past, now, gosh, it's probably been this has been the longest stretch that I've been consistently training jiu-jitsu, which is since late July, early August. So getting close to 5 months here.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest difference that I've noticed with jiu-jitsu versus judo is that, yeah, in jiu-jitsu there is a knowledge component, but there isn't really a curriculum of sorts. You in the sense that before you get the blue belt, you got to be able to do this sweep, you got to be able to do this submission. I'm sure the instructors have that kind of curriculum in their mind, but it's not really spoken. Like I don't think I could go to, not that I would ever do that, but I don't think I could go to, one of the jiu-jitsu instructors and say, what do I need to know for blue belt? Like, right. I don't think that's how that works, at least not at that club, and certainly in my observation, not at a lot of clubs. But in judo, hey, if you're going to get a yellow belt, you'd better know Keisa Katami. You'd better understand when we say ukemi, what that means.
Right.
You better be able to demonstrate ogoshi.
Right.
and not have to walk you through what that translates to. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think what you're touching on right there is my point exactly when I say the knowledge that a yellow belt or a green belt should have. Like I said, the on the mat stuff, yeah, that's easy to evaluate. And you're probably right, because I've never heard of the curriculum to get your blue belt or your purple belt. I don't know. To me, it's always just been mat time, and and I'm sure that your instructors are evaluating you when we're drilling and when you're rolling. They're seeing how you're applying what you've learned. Whether or not there's a certain criteria of what you should know at that, I don't know that exists.
Right.
So to your point exactly, it might be different in jiu-jitsu like that. Yeah.
So time and grade for you was probably not so much time and grade, but time on the mat was definitely one of your factors, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, that there's a few people that we promoted yesterday that could have won a belt higher, maybe, right?
Right.
But the time on the mat to me is important, and it's little things, right? It's just like when we were all white belts and yellow belts. Maybe playing a little too stiff, maybe not attacking enough, or not taking falls for in randori. When your opponent comes up for a nice attack,
right?
Things like that, and those things are important, because once you get those things under your belt, along with like I said, the knowledge and me be able to call out, hey, demonstrate this, and you do it. Those things are important to me in terms of getting your grade.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because in my opinion, like if I had a club and I was the head instructor and stuff, one of the criteria for me, especially in the lower Q ranks, is how often are you taking falls versus how often are you throwing people? Because lower rank people, I want to see them taking more falls, because if they're taking more falls, to me that means that they're taking more risks. Exactly. And I think that's very important. And then as you go up in Q ranks, then I need to start seeing, okay, how often are you throwing people, and how are you throwing people? I'll give you a perfect example. I was doing randori, and of course the listeners don't know who this is. I was doing randori with BC yesterday. Yeah. And I've always said this about Sankyu, because he was promoted to Sankyu. Sankyu to me is the most important Q rank, because that is the rank. In my mind, I'm sure some people heads are gonna explode. That's almost the equivalent in terms of knowledge and ability of when somebody gets their blue belt. Yep. But to me, Sankyu is the most important Q rank, because that is that point where the student is starting to they're starting to actually do judo. Right. And it was really funny. It was a lot of fun doing randori with BC yesterday, because he just got his Sankyu. And there were times that he was hesitant, but there were times that he was going, and he caught me a couple of times on some throws, and the throws were the right timing. He's a little bit bigger than me and stronger than me, and there's been times in the past where he's thrown me where it was more, kind of you're muscling over, you kind of strength. But there were some instances, I think probably 3 times or so, where he caught me. I was attacking, and he countered it beautifully. I went in for like an Uchimata, and he managed to. I think he did a Yoko Wakari as I was going in for an Uchimata, and kind of took my legs out from under me, and that's really great to see. Some of those guys that got promoted to Sankyu, they really are transitioning to become judoka, and they're starting to do judo on their feet like they roll on the ground. Because I think everybody that got promoted to Sankyu yesterday are at least purple belts. Maybe one of them's a brown belt, right?
Exactly. So BC is one of our guys that, and he's also a guy. Since we started the judo program, since Coach Dave started it, he's been there since day one. Him, and we have another student, Jeremy. Yeah. They both were pretty much there in the very beginnings of it. And they're both purple belts in jiu-jitsu, legit purple belts. Yeah, they are. Borderline brown belts. And I watch both of them play. And, me and you, we get a chance to do randori with these guys often. But I watch them play like black belts from other clubs, and they held their own. Yeah, and they got some nice clean throws. And you're right. So it's good to see that point where they start playing judo. Jeremy has probably been there for a while. I mean, he's just, he's a young kid, very athletic. Yeah, very coachable. You show him something, he's doing it, and doing it well. Like the next time you see him in randori, you show him like Ouchigari or Ko-Uchigari, and then he just goes out there and does it in randori, and against more experienced players. So seeing those two guys doing that yesterday against, like I said, some black belts from other clubs, no surprise there.
Yeah.
And the other kid that we promoted to Sankyu, he was a kid that he's a brown belt in Jiu Jitsu, totally very legit Jiu Jitsu player as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. But he was, he moved to Florida from the Northeast. I think he's from like New Hampshire, up in the Northeast, and he's a kid that had been training judo for years with no rank,
right?
Because they had a black belt instructor at it. He was at a school that had multiple disciplines: jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, and MMA, and he does all of that. But he said the judo class was like one of his favorites. He goes, anytime there was a judo class, I was there. So for years, this kid's training judo, but I don't know if his instructor wasn't affiliated with any of the, the big three, if you want to call it that.
I don't.
Yeah. For getting belt promoted. So up there, it was like, yeah, we're doing judo, but there's no belt here. You're not getting promotions. We're training judo. It's part of the curriculum. You can use it for your MMA, use it for your jiu-jitsu tournaments or whatever. But for some reason, they weren't doing belts there. So, this guy comes to my judo class here. One of the other students that we had at the time was like, hey, can a friend that I trained jiu-jitsu with, he's really good at judo. He'd like to come and train with us. So I'm like, yeah, obviously, the more judo. And so this guy starts training with us wearing a white belt, and he's just throwing people left and right. And I'm like, wait a minute. Either my students and myself, because he's throwing me, or we're doing something wrong, or this kid's not a white belt.
Yeah.
So, after talking to him, I'm like, hey, man, how long have you been training judo? Come to find out, the backstory I just gave you, he'd been training for a while. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to get you rank appropriate when we do our belt promotions. And that's why he got Sankyu,
Yeah, he's got nice judo. He's very postured. I noticed I didn't get to go with him. I noticed he likes to take the around the back grip or over the back grip. I think I still think with students, maybe at that level, I don't like seeing an over reliance on that. But maybe that's just the traditionalist in me. Yeah. I like seeing sleeve lapel and learning from that way. But he still had very nice posture. He moved well. He attacked well, and he certainly held his own. So one thing I wanted to get to is, you're talking about him and the situation at his club. And I think that's problematic. There's a lot of independent clubs out there that are not affiliated with anybody. Now, your club, who are you affiliated with in terms of governing body?
So we're kind of in that process right now. We were with one organization, and now we're looking at registering with USJF. Okay. Yeah. So
now, why USJ? I'm just curious. Why USJF over USA Judo or USJA? I'm just curious how that decision is going to be made, and maybe why.
Honestly, so one of the black belts that we have there has a long-standing. He's a lifetime member of USJF. Okay, and it just made sense to us after evaluating the three that it would be good for us, especially considering his long history with that organization, and he had good things to say about him. And I think one of the important things is, we have a few players that are going to be coming up for their Shodan, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about that too.
Right. So it's important to have, and he's a Sandan through USJF. So it's important to have someone at your club that can evaluate and promote the Shodan.
Yeah, absolutely, because you don't want to happen or have happen what happened to the fellow we were just talking about.
Yeah, shout out to Nugget. I'm sorry. I forget. He told me his real name, but everybody just knows him as Nugget.
Yeah, so. that's what I know him as, and that's definitely I understand the need for organizations. But because without them, then you have nobody really certifying your rank, and it doesn't mean that you don't know any judo or anything like that. But I've said it so many times on this podcast: rank matters, and being being evaluated properly matters.
Absolutely.
And, being a part of any organization, it doesn't have to be, it could be any organization, just somebody that, who's ever ranked that you trust and, or evaluation you trust and respect. I think that's really important. So it'll be USJF for you guys. Now, are you going to do Shodan? Do you think the evaluations for Shodan are going to be different?
I don't know, because that's one of those things where between the three organizations, I'm not really sure the division between what they expect for sure. You may have better light on that. What is expected of you as Shodan?
Well, I know for sure Kata, and
Right.
I wanted to talk about Kata a little bit because you were obviously my uke for my demonstration of Nage no Kata.
Right.
But so I'm curious. I know you're working with one of the students on Nage no Kata. Is that something that you're going to look to do a little bit with more frequency? Is being able to demonstrate at least maybe the first 3 sets on one side? Because I don't know the requirements for the USJF. I don't think it's the entire kata, but I gotta believe at least the first 3 sets, maybe only on one side, may be a requirement.
Yeah, and that's what I'm anticipating. So to your point, we have a few students that are ready for that Shodan promotion, and I'm expecting them to know Nage no Kata, and honestly, I want them to know it from both sides.
Yeah,
I think that's
the
that
right
way,
thing.
if it's not required, if you say it's from one side, then so be it. Then they've overstudied for their test.
Yeah,
which is over prepared, right?
Yeah, I think for all the judo organizations, it's for Shodan. It's usually the first three sets of Nage no Kata. Now I know in other countries you have to know the whole thing,
right?
But that we're talking about the United States because we're Americans. So speaking of Nage no Kata, you were my uke.
Right.
For Nage no Kata. And I know I said it on my last episode or the episode before that. I can't remember which one, but no, probably my last episode. I wanted to thank you in person again. I know I've thanked you before, but I wanted to really thank you on the podcast since you're with me here. Thank you for being my uke, because I know it was I said it before, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in judo. Hands down. I don't know. I would like to hear your perspective on being my uke for Nage no Kata. And if you wanna express your frustrations with learning from me, I would love to hear it. Because I don't let it rip. Because I'm very curious to hear about your perspective learning Nage no Kata as uke with me. I'm curious if you thought it was hard, or things along those lines. So why don't you go and tell me your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to second that. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in judo.
Okay, it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even as uke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because uke does a lot more work.
And it's and honestly, no frustration with learning from you, more frustrated that it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I'm uke, so Dave's going to throw me around a little bit. I'll take some falls. No.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work
Yeah.
that goes into being uke. And honestly, I'm just glad that it was good enough, because I really feel like, man, I really need to work on this, because you're right. And it's hard enough for Tori doing this too, but man, there's a lot that goes into it.
There is so much. I have now. I talked about this before. I have the book by Draeger, Judo Formal Techniques, and that is the book, the authority on Nage no Kata. Now I wish I bought that when we first started, because I was just relying on video and stuff. But I mean, we worked for over 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, and when we put it on video again, it's not for public consumption. I will never publish that video to anybody. I know you saw it.
Yeah.
Ours was pretty good for given the limitations that we had teaching ourselves both roles, and me constantly telling you, do this, no, do this, step here, no, bring your hand here, not here. I mean, that's how it was. I mean, I'm surprised you were as patient as you were. I mean, I wasn't demanding. I don't think I was demanding, but I was very just really jabbering a lot, just trying to tell you what to do and how to do it, but not in a rude way, but just constant instruction.
Well, think about it. This is for your promotion. You don't want to put something sloppy out there and it's like, this is a family friendly podcast, but you don't want to half-ass it, right? You want to do it right. So no, I appreciate that point of, hey man, put your hand, because at some point, especially with these other promotions that I have, I may be okay again, right?
Yeah, or at the very least, and I can be okay for them as well, because I said it before, nobody should have to go through what we went through. Yeah, I mean,
we did it the hard way, right? But there's something to be said for that. It's kind of like getting thrown in randori, right? If you don't struggle or fail, sometimes how are you going to learn? Since we've done it, I've kind of went back and read some articles and looked at some more videos and just picking up little points like, oh, I wish I'd have done this for Dave this way as uke. It would have helped him a lot, and just seeing the fine points now. So it was a great learning experience, I think.
Yeah, uke's job is tougher. I really think it's tougher, and I said it before, it's probably more important in the kata, in the demonstration of the kata, in the practice of the kata, because if you're not moving the right way, if you're not doing the right things, if your body positioning, if you're leaning over instead of being more straight or whatever the case may be, the kata really will fall apart for Tori. So uke's job is very, very difficult, and I hope that when the time comes when those students that are going to be up for their promotions, I know you're going to work with them. I certainly want to be a part of that and help them, because it's hard. Yeah, it's so hard, and for them, they're just demonstrating, doing the first 3 sets, which the first 3 sets, it's not very difficult except for kata guruma. That's hard. That really was hard for me. I'm sure I was doing it really wrong, but again, without instruction, I've only got books and video without an actual instructor or not an actual sensei really evaluating. It's tough.
Yeah. It's funny to me too that with all the rules revisions in judo for competitions, that the kata, you're going and back, and you're essentially, some people think about it, if they've only been doing judo in the past 5-6 years and they're starting to work on nage no kata, it's like, what's this kata guruma? You mean I can touch the leg?
Yeah, that's really funny to me when you put it that way, because there's a lot. We're getting to that point where people that started after 2010, they're already maybe getting their shodan or even nidan. So you're starting to get a generation of judoka, that's been doing the judo for so long that they don't even remember a time when you could grab the legs.
Right.
Like that's how far those rule changes have taken us now. It's so many people are starting without the leg grabs that it's that's how far. I mean, we were able to grab the legs, and yesterday we were working on Kouchi Makikomi to a nifty arm lock. That was a lot of fun, but actually that particular version was IJF approved. But
yes, because you were kind of like clamping the leg with your elbow on the outside rather than using your hand. So that version would be legal, right?
Yeah, that version would definitely be legal, and that's I think it's a great version, for jiu-jitsu because you continue and you roll right through right into to the hold down and to the arm lock. So
Right.
that was really good learning that. I couldn't do the other one, the Kata Guruma. If somebody stops you with that Koji Makikomi to go with Kata Guruma on my feet, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
it's too much on my back.
Yeah, I was more of a fan of the rolling through to the arm lock as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Joe, I got a question for you. It's my understanding that you're going to bring the club down to one of the local competitions in the, Delray Beach or Miami
I think
area?
Boynton Beach. Yeah,
right. So, tell me a little bit about how you're going to prepare your students, because most of these guys that do judo, they really do judo for jiu-jitsu. But now they're gonna actually try their hand at an actual judo tournament. So tell me about how you're going to prepare them for training and such, and for the judo experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like you said, most of these students, some of them have some competition experience under their belt in BJJ, but I believe none of them have judo experience. And so for me, I won't focus so much on techniques, right? Okay. Because the tournament really, I think it's like less than a month away. So we've kind of already started like the competition drilling, like the uchikomi, nagikomi kind of stuff.
Right.
For me, the biggest thing is going to be focusing on things like the rules.
Right.
Right. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to have to brush up on the current IJF rule set.
Yeah.
Because normally when I'm teaching at the club, I don't really adhere to that. I would say that if you want to align what I'm showing my students at the club, it would be closer to like what freestyle judo is.
Sure.
Right. We do grab legs.
Yeah.
And things of that nature.
You hear that, people? It does happen. There are judo clubs that still train leg grabs. It happens.
Yeah, because we train judo,
right?
And it's part of the game.
Yeah, Steve Scott will love hearing that.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. Shout out to Steve Scott because it's so funny. Like a lot of times, I'm like, when I'm preparing my curriculum, I'm like, man, what should I show today? And then, Derek Darling and those videos that they showed from Welcome Mat, I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is that's a great idea. I love their instructional videos.
Absolutely.
I've stolen so much from them.
Yeah.
They're probably going to sue me after this.
Yeah.
So I think the focus for these students, to get back to your question, is I want them to be familiar with the little things, like how to ray onto the mat, how the rule set and strategy. I think those things right there are the most important going into their first tournament. Technique wise, with a month away, it's not like they're going to pick up 2 or 3 new techniques before then.
Right.
But I want them to be more familiar with the rule set, the strategy, even like edge of mat techniques, right?
Right.
Where an attack's going to count for if you score a point or when it's not. The other thing that I think, especially for my students going in, one big difference from what they're used to is the ground, right? Newaza.
Yeah.
BJJ, they're not used to time limits on the ground. They go down to the mat in a judo competition, they get caught in half guard. There's not going to be any laid back approach to passing the guard, setting your opponent up to pass in half guard. You got to start immediately. And if you're not getting past those legs in a few seconds, they're going to stand you back up.
Yep.
So I want them to know all this stuff. So I think we're going to really maybe put together a competition focus class for all the ones who plan on competing, where they learn all these things.
Yeah. I think that would be a good idea. Not so much the techniques or even the drilling, but just those, especially for some of these purple belts out there. What is your go-to technique to quickly turn somebody over?
Right.
You know, not digging your hand in and you're trying to loop around. The refs are they're not gonna wait around for that.
Exactly.
Probably also they need to know they need to get into the habit of even something as simple as bowing onto the mat. I coming to the club, I'm terrible at that. I just step on the mat and I don't or another thing, like at the start of a match, you ray, right?
Right.
But don't slap hands.
Yeah.
You know, don't do that.
You know, I've had to break myself
Yeah.
of that training BJJ for the past 5 years or so. You know, we always slap hands and do all that. You can't do that in a judo tournament.
No.
You come to stick your hand out, you're getting that sleeve.
Yeah,
you give out their
gonna be a
sleeve
cross
grip.
grip. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So that you bring up a great point. I want them, when we start doing this, to ray and get them hands up and be ready.
Yeah. And you've been, I know you've taught a lot of gripping. All those guys are adept at gripping for the most part, correct?
Yes, very much so.
And I think you got a lot of that from Dave, but I think more recently you've gotten some of that from the training camp that you went to in Mexico, you know, over the last summer, right? Travis Stevens himself.
Yeah. I picked up some great gripping techniques from Travis.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you're looking to go again this year. Is that right?
Yeah, and from what I understand, Travis will be back again this year, and I also heard that Neil Adams is going to be there, which really excites me.
Yeah, that would be great. I want to go. Victor's pushing me to go. It's going to be right around that time where I'm moving out of this house. That might be a tough one for me. Yeah. And not only am I moving out of this house, and I've got to my other property. I gotta get that rented because I gotta get those people out of there.
Right.
So it might be a tough time for me to do that. That'll be a tough sell for the wife, saying, "Hey, I know we got all this stuff going on, but I want to go to Cancun for 4 days." Yeah, that's a tough sell, especially if she's not going.
Right.
You know, and even if she does go, then we got to figure out the kids and stuff. So.
Well, I hope it all works out, and I hope you get to go because it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. It certainly seemed like a great experience for you and for. Did anybody else from the club go? Well, I know besides Steph.
No, it was just me and Steph from the club. I'm gonna try to get some people from the club to go this year. One student in particular, Keon. I would love for Keon to go, just because, you know, there's some pretty high level. Obviously, with Travis being there, you know, in our country, that's pretty much as high level as it gets right now. You know, so it would be a good experience for him because, you know, he has so much potential. Yeah,
he does. He definitely does. He's we were discussing this off microphone, but he's a fellow that's a challenge in a different way because of his athleticism, and I'm not going to give too much away about this fellow on the podcast because I don't think it's I don't feel comfortable doing that. Right. But I'll just go as far as saying is that this guy is truly an elite level athlete, and it's hard because in this country we don't have people that do judo that are at his level. No. And I'm not, and guys, when I say this, I'm not just kind of throwing that out there. Like you guys don't understand that this guy is truly legit. In terms of his athleticism, his speed, his strength, it's not common. It's not a big guy that's just kind of young and stuff. It's a whole different level. And you and I both know his background in sports and stuff. So
yeah, he's a former professional athlete.
We'll just leave it at that. Right. Yeah. And there is, I know it's going to drive people crazy for me to even say this, but I'll say it that with just a little bit of judo knowledge, he probably could make a run at U.S. Nationals, and that's
and just to be fair, you're not the only one saying that. So
oh really?
Well, no. On our open mat yesterday, we had a former Olympian on the mat with him.
Yeah, that's right.
And a former instructor from the Cuban national team.
Yeah, right.
And they both agreed. They both echoed what you just said.
Did they? Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the instructor from the Cuban national team said, yeah, he should be in Vegas doing nationals this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think because this country's best athletes don't do judo.
No.
They do the sport that he did. They don't do judo.
Right.
They play other sports. They play basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. That's what our best athletes do. And
right. And in this country, it's like everything else, right? You're going where the money is.
Right.
If there was real money in judo, we would probably have one of the best teams in the world. And I'm not, and I'm not trying to be some like nationalist. Oh, we're the best, but we have a lot of great athletes here. But our athletes are, like you said, they're going to football, they're going to the NBA. We would have a much better soccer team or football for our foreign listeners here. And we're competitive in that sport. We're not great. We're never going to be a Brazil, a France, an England. But we can compete with those guys now, and that's with our best athletes going to basketball,
right,
and baseball and football. So, it's just the focus. If the focus here was judo, I have no doubt that we could beat anybody.
Yeah, because we have the resources and the facilities, and there's a lot of other countries that excel in judo that don't have the kind of wealth here, and I don't. I'm not saying that as from a pompous point of view. I'm just saying the United States is just different.
Not even wealth monetarily, just the wealth of talent.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're 320 million plus people here, and when you look at the countries that dominate at judo, even a country like Japan, I mean, they have a pretty decent population for such a small place, but what is it? I don't even know the population of Japan, but it's nowhere near the United States. No. But they're so dominant at judo.
There's some countries dominant in judo that aren't even as big as Florida, and don't even have as many people.
Yeah, look at like Georgia.
Right, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a challenge when you get a guy that strong, that athletic. Because you just don't have the training partners. Yeah. And it's got to be difficult to. Well, he's very coachable. I'll just say he's very, very coachable. He learns quickly, but man, it's to get somebody even close to his level. I mean,
it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. I mean, he could learn proper judo. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of competition, I really think if he actually set his mind to it, he could win nationals. Just because I don't believe there's a 100 or over 100 kilo player in the United States that's more athletic than him. I don't believe it. I just don't.
And depending on
and that's not a slam on whomever that person is. I don't quite recall. It's just. You don't understand. It's just,
it's not a slam on whoever the 100+ kilo champ is here.
Right.
It's more of a praise of how athletic this guy
is. Exactly.
Exactly. And you're right. If he wants to do that, I'll do everything I can to help him get there. Obviously, I can do what I can do, but we're going to have to get him. He's going to have to go somewhere where he gets better, bigger training partners.
Yeah, he definitely needs bigger, stronger training partners. But I really do believe that you and Victor and some of the other instructors that show up at your club, that they can teach him proper judo.
Absolutely.
That's not the problem. Because he's still doing judo. So he's not really doing judo.
Right.
Not yet. But I think he could get there very quickly if he learns to apply himself in a certain way that probably is a complete opposite of everything that he has ever done in his life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now the big challenge for him as well is like the funding aspect of that and the
Right.
traveling and things like that. This is something that we were discussing a little bit yesterday during lunch, and I wanted to get your perspective on this. Jiu-Jitsu, the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle, the Jiu-Jitsu fashion, the tournaments, how is it, maybe you can explain this to me, how is it that local tournaments, can have cash prizes of $1,000 for first place, and judo tournaments, nationals, maybe you get a gold medal and a pat on the back, maybe a picture with Jimmy Pedro. I mean, I don't know. It's certainly nothing like just local tournaments.
You're absolutely right.
What's the deal with that? What is it about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? They seem to have the lifestyle figured out.
You're absolutely right. I think what BJJ, especially here in the U.S., has done better than judo or better than any martial art, is they've capitalized on the popularity of like the UFC. UFC is its own thing, right?
Right.
It's fighting. It's boxing. It's Muay Thai. It's judo. It's jiu-jitsu, all wrapped into one. But I think that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has made that association with MMA better than any other martial art.
Right.
Like Taekwondo has always been popular here, right? Especially amongst children and
Right.
kids. And a lot of the guys that fight in the UFC have a Taekwondo background, but they haven't really marketed themselves as, aligned with MMA. Where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's almost, you think of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys and you think, MMA. It's like they almost go hand in hand.
Yeah. And
when the fight goes to the ground in UFC or MMA, any of the major organizations, you see that's something we were doing in my jiu-jitsu class right there. Oh, he's going for an omoplata. Oh, the way he took the back there, that's the way mine shot. There's a close association.
Right.
They go hand in hand, and I think BJJ has always been good at marketing themselves, right? Even the Gracies, who actually started the UFC.
Yeah,
that's probably
right.
where where that association comes from. They the early days it was style versus style, and BJJ won. Let's face it.
And the funny thing is, because I've rewatched those early matches many times. Royce Gracie did not do anything, in my opinion, that is unique to BJJ. And I can understand the outrage. 25 years almost. Yeah. 25 years ago, when you have a bunch of judo guys saying that's just judo,
right?
He didn't do anything that was so that you did not see, maybe except triangle on the back, but even that's in judo.
But you could even argue it was more like Kosen judo, right? Right. So you're absolutely right. But you also got to remember that Royce was like first generation Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and those guys learned judo. They started from judo. So,
and they have like a combative type, like that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is more combative stuff, right?
Especially earlier, right?
Oh,
especially when those guys, and from what I understand at Royce's school in Torrance, that's kind of the style he teaches, is more the combative style.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
right.
So that makes sense that he did so well. But you're right. You know, it was like, yeah, it looked like judo to
right.
Judo. Old school judo.
Right. You know, like the chokes and stuff like that. That wasn't really. There wasn't anything there. There wasn't anything that he did. There's plenty in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that make it very unique.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that's what I do want to get into this toward the end of the podcast. I want to talk a little bit about my perspective on training jiu-jitsu over the past 5 months or so, just a little bit with you, because we don't have this type of conversation very often. But
right.
But you know, in those early UFCs, they didn't really. What he was doing was not. There wasn't anything unique to. like you didn't see butterfly guards. You didn't see
right.
You didn't see just a lot of unique stuff. There's no berimbau,
right.
Yeah. But you're talking about the marketing of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the UFC and that closeness, and they've really ran with that.
Well, when you think about it, the UFC was a marketing piece for Brazilian,
for the Gracies.
Rorion Gracie, that was his idea. Yeah, he wanted to show that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the most effective combat martial art, and he pretty much went all in, right? Had they went out there and got destroyed by some Taekwondo guy, it probably would have, we'd be talking about Taekwondo today as the lifestyle. And but because Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was so effective, it was the ultimate, and that was his plan all along, was to spread Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and this was the marketing for it, and it worked.
And the funny thing is, I don't know if you realize this, that wasn't the first time they tried to mass market Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Lethal Weapon, when Riggs was fighting Mr. Joshua at the end, it's my understanding one of the Gracies.
They were consultants.
They were consultants on that last scene where it went from I think it was if I recall correctly, Riggs got Mr. Joshua from a triangle choke to an armbar.
Or armbar.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
the Gracies were
they were already in the United States really trying to do that, but they needed something. They needed a bigger stage, something completely different that's going to catch the attention of really an American public that in general loves fighting.
Yeah, because when you think about it, when the UFC first started, there was because I remember watching UFC 1. Me and my friend Frank, man, we saw an ad on cable for this pay-per-view. I think it was like $9.
Yeah.
To Ultimate Fighting.
It was cheap.
Yeah, and we were we're like, oh, we're there. And I remember we got together at his apartment. We watched that first UFC back in '93.
Yeah.
And we were instantly in love, right? But if you remember, there was a point where the UFC was considered more heinous than watching porn. Because like a lot of the satellite companies that were
wouldn't show it.
They wouldn't show it. You could buy adult films and watch them on satellite, but you couldn't watch UFC because it was like
it was so brutal back then,
right?
Too,
and it was such a risky marketing ploy for the Gracies, right? When they first did it, they didn't think of it that way, but by UFC 3, man, it was like, hey, this stuff is way too violent.
Yeah,
and so they had to conform a little bit. I
think the only thing you couldn't do was eye gouge and fish hook.
Yeah,
but you could punch a guy in the groin if you
pull his hair.
It was pretty brutal. Nothing like the fantastic sport that I think is fantastic. That we see today,
right?
It's such a far cry from that.
Yeah, there's no way they could get away with it.
It's almost comical when you look at those old matches,
right, because that truly was, nobody was cross training back then.
No,
and to the Gracie's credit, with him coming in and winning all those early UFCs, it forced these other guys who were maybe straight wrestlers, or karate guys, like, hey, I've got to learn this, because it works. And so now that's really where the MMA, because let's face it, when it first started, it wasn't MMA.
No,
it was style versus style.
Style versus style.
And then guys started, and I think that's where, like you said, the awesome sport that we have today. Because now guys who get into MMA today, they're generally not coming from a one discipline background.
Now MMA is a thing.
Its own thing. Guys who start today, they're wrestling from day one. They're doing jiu-jitsu from day one. They're doing Muay Thai and boxing from day one. They're learning it all at the same time. They're not a guy who's been doing Muay Thai his whole life learning how to grapple.
Right. So you got the marketing aspect of from that joint together and stuff. But that's not it. That's not all there is in this, kind of this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle of sorts. I mean, you've got all these different gi brands. You've got these really great marketing for rash guards.
Yeah.
T-shirts. I mean, it seems like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a general whole has really figured out how to market.
Yes.
What they've got and it really appeals to. Again, I know people that listen to this podcast outside of the United States. They don't really understand it because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like it's like us obsessing over curling or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's such an obscure thing in other countries. It's not even worth mentioning for a lot of those people. But at least in the United States, they've really tapped into. For some reason, it really appeals to the. And I know I've talked about this before on the podcast. Really appeals to the I guess the American mindset, if you want to put it that way. And I'm not even talking about the fighting aspect of it, just the fashion aspect of it.
It's kind of like, and I'm going to date myself here, and this is it even started before I was born, but as a kid. But when the Bruce Lee movies, when they exploded over here. The same thing happened with karate, right? Karate was there was a dojo on every corner.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to learn. And karate kind of had that lifestyle thing. I remember as a kid wearing the kung fu shoes and the Chinese star. No,
that's true.
So
for me, it was ninjas.
Yeah.
In the 80s. American Ninja. Michael Dudikoff. That was awesome.
Right. So, and Claude Van Damme also, the kickboxing thing kind of, but it never really took off.
No, it didn't.
As like a fashion thing. I think it got people interested, but like karate kind of had that thing going on in the 70s. And like you said, they had the ninja thing.
The early 80s, the ninja and the Karate Kid. But the thing is, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu actually has staying power. We're talking about 25 years.
Yeah,
now.
You're right. And it's only getting bigger.
It is.
And especially from like the fashion thing, like you said, like there's so many gi companies making gis and T-shirts and rash guards, and you're right. And judo, in my opinion, this is where they're kind of missing out. And I don't know if it's that traditionalist attitude, the white gi and the blue gi only. I get that. You want to keep it traditional, and really, if you're really a traditionalist, only the white gi is acceptable, right?
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
So for me, sometimes, man, tradition, you got to start your own traditions, right? And you conform, assimilate, or you kind of get pushed to the side, and you kind of see that happening here with judo, right? We don't have the cool rash guards because I guess traditionally in competition you don't wear a rash guard under your gi.
Right.
Or you don't have no gi judo competitions.
No, except with freestyle judo,
which I really wish and hope it catches on, because I think it's a great thing to have going there. Like at our club, we have a no gi jiu-jitsu class because, like I said, most of our students compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments, and they compete no gi. So you want to have extra techniques to bring to the table.
Absolutely. Right.
So, but judo, and even one of the cool things that I like about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle thing, if you will, is like the cool T-shirts, right? You know, where they take a famous logo from it could be like
the Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai.
Yeah, Cobra Kai, and make it and translate it to a jiu-jitsu. Like I have a cool rash guard that's based on Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And it says Jiu-Jitsu Fighter instead. And it's got like the 8-bit graphics on it.
See, that's where judo, for the most part, is missed out. Now, dojo outfitters, we talked about this yesterday. I think they do a great job. They've got really great. They are judo. I know. I think I can't remember their fellows' names out there. One guy has a mustache. It's a pretty badass mustache. But yeah, they put out great videos, great judo videos, and they're marketing their stuff. They got a great slogan. The whole "wash your gi" thing. That's great. I mean,
right.
You're having stickers that just say "wash your gi." I see it at the at Ybor City.
Yeah,
we
had that up there.
Up there. Yep. Fuji is finally coming along, I think.
Yeah, they're kind of like the first if you want to call them a crossover, right?
Yeah.
Where they've been known for years in the judo end of things, and now they got guys like Travis Stevens, who himself, right, at our highest level here in the U.S., he's probably our best known judoka, but he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt,
right?
And he's kind of brought that crossover appeal, and they've really they do well in the Jiu-Jitsu space as well,
yeah,
with their rash guards and things of that nature. I think somebody's got to do that.
They gotta have, and this is, we were talking about this yesterday. You gotta have a brand, a brand that people can identify with. And the thing that drives me crazy is if I go to Amazon.com and I look up jiu-jitsu t-shirts, I'm gonna see a whole bunch of really cool stuff.
Right.
Where if I go on Amazon and look for judo t-shirts, I'm gonna see t-shirts that just say judo.
It's gonna say judo with some kanji
on it. Like, that's nothing. Like, I love NFL football, but I'm not gonna get a t-shirt that says National Football League.
Right.
Right. I'm just not gonna do that. So
yeah, that's where somebody. I mean, it's been done, right? Jiu-Jitsu does a great job of it. One of my favorite rash guards that I saw recently is, I'm a big fan of Cafe Bustelo coffee.
I was just gonna bring that up.
And then they come out with I think 93 brand came out with the rash guard that says Cafe Jiu-Jitsu with the same logo, and it's brilliant.
It is. I think I saw Tony wearing
it,
right? Yeah,
he beat me to it. I wanted to get that rash guard so bad.
Yeah. He's got all the good gis. He's got the Super Saiyan gi from what's that?
Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, he gets all the good stuff.
Yeah, I got the cool Gotham Batman gi from 93 brand. And see, that's the other thing we don't get in judo. You're not going to get now even that gi, like, I couldn't use in an IBJJF competition if I wanted to. Right. But I can sure train in it, and it looks cool, and it's fun. But
yeah, when I was shopping for gis, because I bought my first jiu-jitsu gi not that long ago, just the cheap one that you get off Amazon. But I was looking at other brands, like, they've got pockets in their gis. You could keep your cell phones, your mouth guard, and stuff like that. Like, that's really great. I mean, it doesn't have. You can have that stuff, and I shouldn't have to go to jiu-jitsu to get those kind of little conveniences, and then get a size big enough that I could use it for judo. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just I don't know. It's just, it feels like a lot of judo companies missed out on.
Yeah, they're missing a market.
They're not only missing the market, maybe they just don't have the minds, the people involved to really be the creative minds like that. Or if they're out there, maybe they're just getting shut down. Maybe they're it's like, well, this is judo. We don't do that here.
Well, maybe this podcast will inspire somebody who's a cross trainer of BJJ and judo, and to say, yeah, you know what, those guys are right. Maybe I should start making some cool judo T-shirts that don't just say judo with an animated picture of somebody throwing an Uchimata or something.
God, that's awful. You have a brand. Make a brand of your own, and whether it's a symbol or something, and then just sell to the judo sphere in terms of this is my product. I'm making rash guards. I'm making T-shirts. This is my brand. Doesn't have to say judo. It doesn't have to say
right.
It doesn't have to say anything. I mean, just have a brand. So, Joe, wrapping up this podcast, I want to talk a little bit about because we do train together, jiu-jitsu as well as judo, and I want to talk about some of my perspectives of training jiu-jitsu alongside judo over these past 5 months, and I'm very curious to find out if you've had these similar experiences. First and foremost for me over these past 5 months training jiu-jitsu, this is gonna sound a little weird. It's brought a lot of healing to my body.
Wow.
Because my body was starting judo was starting to take its toll.
Yeah.
And, starting. It didn't take its toll, but it was starting to take its toll. And because in judo, it's anywhere between 70%. It's usually, very rarely are clubs 50-50 in judo.
Right.
Even when I trained with Dave, we were more. We did a lot. It was more like 70-30, or maybe even 65-35 if we want to really break it down. But with my current training schedule, it is 50-50. Where when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, it's the pace that I go, and it's all ground. Like we never really do stand-up techniques in jiu-jitsu. We
right.
start on the ground. A lot of people. I saw this guy on the club page, some old school judo guy, talking about butt flopping and stuff. And I took real exception to that. I really didn't like that at all, because that's such a closed-minded perspective on what jiu-jitsu is, and I never thought of it that way. Just a bunch of butt floppers rolling around on the ground. That's such a ridiculous trope. It frustrates me when I see things like that. It's so ignorant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's kind of that old school "we're better than you" mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to look. You have to look. There's always been that argument too of, oh, well, that's sport jiu-jitsu. That'll never work for real.
It doesn't. Right. It's sport, and it's okay.
It's okay, but to that point, for you folks that watch MMA, and one of the last UFC events, you had Ryan Hall, who's a well-decorated BJJ guy, against BJ Penn, the prodigy. Everybody knows who BJ Penn is,
right?
And Ryan Hall did the equivalent of, it was similar to an Imanari roll, for you guys that know what that is. He rolled to his back, almost Berimbolo style, laced up BJ Penn's leg, took him to the ground that way, and finished him with a heel hook. Probably tore BJ Penn's ACL.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And you remember now, BJ Penn's been a BJJ
Absolutely.
black belt for years.
For years.
And for you guys that haven't watched it, man, I suggest just pull that up, because it's something that you would never expect to work in MMA.
Right.
Dropping down to your back, rolling up onto your shoulders, lacing the guy's legs with your legs, taking him down that way, and then finishing him with a heel hook. People would say, oh, that's sport jiu-jitsu. That would never work in MMA. Well, here you go. It worked.
Yeah, right.
And it worked against a legend.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So you're right. That kind of mentality of, oh, these guys just flop to their butt. Well, I mean, in the rule set of the sport of jiu-jitsu, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, and the thing is that this guy was, I'm not picking on him per se, but it's such I guess he's an older gentleman. He was like, well, why don't you come to the club, and you could do judo with us, you can roll jiu-jitsu, and he said he doesn't do judo anymore because he's torn his shoulder out, it doesn't work anymore. And that's kind of the thing where doing jiu-jitsu is going to allow me to train for the long term. And I'm not a very flexible person, but a lot of my I was dealing with back spasms for months. Months. And the constant rolling of jiu-jitsu, the constant movement, that, being warmed up and stuff, it's really loosening up a lot of parts of my body. And that's what I mean, that it's brought a lot of healing to me. Yeah. Because I'm more 50-50 now in terms of, how often I do judo versus how often I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I might even, there's some weeks where I do more jiu-jitsu than judo. Yeah. But it's allowing me to continue training in a very safe, in a very controlled manner. And I only go one pace, for the most part. I don't care about being tapped anymore. I really don't. It doesn't, I could not care less. It used to be, I used to feel very differently about it, but I've become almost a little stubborn, and this is how I'm going to go. This is how I'm going to roll. This is how I'm going to approach this. If you tap me out, great. I'm going to have to learn to do something different. I'm going to have to move a different way. I'm going to have to try and sweep a different way. I have to figure out, why did this not work?
Right.
You know, and I know, like, I'll admit it, years ago, you know, if somebody bigger and stronger, you know, tapped me out, I'd be like, well, because you're just stronger.
Right.
You know, hey, you know, strength, dude. You know, I'm not that way anymore. I don't make excuses for myself. I don't ask somebody, what do you weigh? You know, what's your weigh, guy? That's you know, I used to be that way years ago, but I'm not. I'm not anymore. I don't care. You know, we're talking about the fellow who, you know, who's really strong. I don't care. I'll roll with him. I'll roll with anybody. And if I get tapped out, so be it. It's no.
Yeah.
I don't look at my belt. I don't look at it as defending the belts. And because of that approach, I'm sure there'll be a day where I get hurt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or even injured. Hopefully, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten.
It's inevitable
head,
that
you know,
stuff's little things are gonna happen, but more than likely, you're never gonna be like suffer something that's gonna keep you out for a long time or require surgery,
right?
Or especially because, like you said, you're rolling at your pace now,
right?
The only time you really get hurt is when you go with the guy who's trying to muscle you and and you try to match. That's where you get hurt, right? So you get with the guy that's going 110% and you're going at your 50%, 60% pace, and he keeps tapping. Eventually, he's going to either slow down and match you,
yeah,
or he's like, oh, I'm not going to roll this guy anymore. He's not, you know, he's just letting me win, which is not what's happening.
No, that's not what's happening.
You're trying to get better. You're trying
on my own terms,
right?
You know,
you're not trying to win.
You know, and when I look at, you know, because both of the head instructors at the club are pretty. I don't want to say small guys, but they're lightweights.
No, they're small guys.
You know, they're lightweights, and when I see them roll, they always have an answer for the situation that they're in. So that's why and that's kind of my approach to when I'm rolling. I'm trying to figure out what is the answer to this situation.
Exactly.
Here. It's not just doing what I don't know what I'm doing, except harder and faster.
Right.
You know, that's not the answer. There's always an answer. There's always an answer to the it's a very complex, it's like a puzzle of sorts. And for me in judo, it's the same way. It's just different. And the problem with judo for me is that a lot of times the answer to a situation is, well, I got to throw left, and I don't have a good left. I don't have a good left yet.
But but it's forcing you to do it, and,
right?
And you're working on it, right?
Right.
You're right. I have like 2 throws from the left side, but I know when I'm forced to go that way, I've got at least 2 things I can try.
Right.
Right. And you're right. It forces you to learn. And getting back to what you're saying about both of the head instructors there being smaller guys. Joe Rogan said this many times on his podcast. If you're going to learn jiu-jitsu, learn from a smaller guy, because you're always going to learn better technique, because they can't rely on their strength because it's not there. Yeah. They can't rely on muscling a guy over when they're beat. They have to figure it out with technique. Yeah. And like you said, with our instructors, they've got an answer for everything, and they have to do it with technique. Yeah. And that's the best way to learn. I agree. Yeah, and I just, you know, like I tap out a lot more than I ever used to, and I literally don't care. I just don't. Maybe it's just my age and maturity is kind of come along, and it's the same way with judo. I was about to say, I don't care. You know, I don't care if you're a green belt that throws me. You know, hell, he threw me twice yesterday. We're going at a certain pace, and when I do randori, I'm pretty stubborn at the pace that I go as well. Yeah. If
if you want to chuck me around and you get off doing that, whatever, all the more power to you. 'Cause I'm working on my own things in my own way, and
think
I'm
about
trying
it,
to stay safe.
And that's when your judo got better, right? When you stopped caring about getting thrown.
Yeah, as far as my movement
Yep.
and taking risks, and I feel like I'm progressing a little bit better now. You know, especially working with the kata certainly helped a lot. But I feel like I'm doing pretty good judo now.
Right.
You know,
and it's the same with, like you're saying with jiu-jitsu. You're saying I'm rolling at my own pace, and that to me, like, when I really saw my progression in jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
it was when I learned to relax when I was in a bad spot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that was
because that's what I do. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. You know,
that's the best thing that happened to my game. Used to when someone would get top position on me, and I would try to hold my half guard. I'm holding on with everything I got, and I'm really trying to hip escape out of there, and not relaxing at all.
Right.
You just gas yourself out. You're gonna get your guard passed. You're gonna be in a worse position. So now, when someone gets into that position, I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not getting excited about it. I'm just like, okay, so what am I going to do? What can I force my opponent to do to get them where I need to be to maybe get a sweep or to escape out the back door or something,
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. And in judo, it was the same way, right? When I learned to, hey, if I get thrown, so what? I gotta take some risk and attack here.
Yeah.
And if I get thrown, so be it.
Yeah.
Then from there, I got to figure out how can I do this without getting thrown.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
where your game gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I probably I'm definitely, I don't think I'm stiff in jiu-jitsu. I mean, you've rolled with me a bit. I think I'm pretty loose, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think even in jiu-jitsu, I probably could stand to take more risks. I take risks, but I try not to do stupid things. I try and take more, like I'm not gonna, you'll never see me cartwheel out try and pass in a guard. Like that, that kind of stuff I won't do.
That's not my game either.
I won't take risks if I think I'm going to injure you in the process. That's not the kind of risks that I take. But sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not going for that submission enough because because I really like this position and I feel like it gets somewhere else. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
And that's a smart way to play it, right? I mean, this is like one of the oldest cliches in jiu-jitsu, but you always hear position before submission.
Yeah.
Sometimes guys, they grab a hold of an arm and they're like, "Oh, I'm going for this Kimura here," but you're not in the position to get it.
Right.
More than anything, you're probably gonna get swept, or you're gonna, they're gonna use that to set you up for something. So positioning is way more important. So that's the right approach, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just like I give you a perfect example. Like if I've got mount, I'm terrible at chokes. By the way, I don't know what it is about submitting somebody with chokes. It's very difficult for me. I know there's a lot of people out there that excel at it. I don't. I've had all these lessons in judo I've had for going on my 13th year. I mean, I know all the basic chokes. It's very difficult for me to get a choke on anybody, whether it's Hadaka Jime or Kuri Eri Jime. It doesn't matter. It's always very difficult. But even in jiu-jitsu, I'm not even allowing myself to take risks. Like if I got mount going for cross collar choke because I'm afraid I'm going to get turned over. But not afraid. I just don't want to get turned over because I like the top position. But then, then I realize, well, if I get turned over, I still have the choke. I could still keep working.
Absolutely. There's a lot of like almost like in judo to align it like sacrifice chokes, right?
Right.
There's chokes where if you've got the right grips, right, them sweeping you is actually to your advantage.
To your advantage, right?
Because you can use that momentum to over rotate and really choke them out.
Right.
Yeah. So
those are the type of things that I don't take as many risks as I probably should.
Right.
Because I like top position.
Right. But at least you recognize it, right?
Right.
So now maybe next time you roll and you're on top, you're like, you know what? I've got nice cross collar grips here. If he rolls me, I don't care. I still got the grips. I can still finish the choke from the bottom.
Right.
And if they sweep it and it doesn't work, then you figure out why didn't it work.
Right.
And then you try it again next time. It might be, you might get swept 100 times before it works, or it might take 3 times.
Yeah, and speaking of top position, I think we've talked about this before, but I got to tell you, one of the biggest differences I see with blue belts versus purple belts is their top game. And like it's really interesting to like purple belts have all the really cool skills, quote unquote cool skills from these different half guard sweeps and working on their back, but when they get at the club, man, yourself included, like they get past me, they get past my defenses. They feel like judo guys. And I mean that in a good way. They feel like when they get their hold down, I feel like I'm suffocating, like I'm stuck. Where the blue belts not so much. I feel like especially when things are pretty close in terms of size and weight. That is the biggest difference to me is the purple belts. They got all the cool skills. But man, their hold downs, their pins, that the space that they leave, it's almost non-existent. That's such a big difference.
I was going to say, we've talked about this before. The biggest difference between like a good blue belt and a purple belt is the space.
Yeah.
Right. And then conversely, going up from there, the biggest difference between a brown belt and a purple belt is the space.
The space too. Huh?
And then the next level, a black belt leaves you no space.
Right.
And I've said this before, when you watch a high-level gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match between 2 high-level black belts, I hate to say it this way, but it can sometimes be frustrating to watch because it's like 2 boxers that are both so good that neither one can land a strike.
Right.
Like when Floyd Mayweather boxing against anybody, sometimes it's hard to watch because you can't hit him. Right. He's so good. And with him not being like a knockout boxer. So people can say, oh man, it's boring, but it's really so high level.
Yeah. Right.
Sometimes when I watch some of these guys in the gi that are so high level and they don't give each other a millimeter of space. So it almost looks like nothing's happening, but so much is happening.
Yeah.
Whereas when you watch no-gi jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of action because you don't have the grips, the same kind of grip, and you don't have the friction from the gi pants.
Sure.
So these guys, there's a lot more. It seems like it's a lot more exciting. Even you take the same 2 guys that are high-level black belts and you take the gis off them, it's a different match.
Yeah. Right.
And so you're right. That the whole thing you said about it, the biggest difference, it isn't necessarily always the skills and the techniques. Yeah, obviously a purple belt has been on the mat a little longer. It's got a few more techniques, but more importantly, it is that space and that top pressure.
Yeah, the top pressure, man. It's just they're good. I mean, they're good. They all feel like like any experienced judoka that gets you in that hold. It's hard. It's hard to get out. And even though in jiu-jitsu you have that time, and I think that's the different skill set too. Is in judo you can exert yourself for 20 seconds
and then the match is over.
All you want, but just it's like when I'm playing off my back against somebody that's a purple belt. I probably shouldn't even give up in my mind. Not that I give up, but like when they get past me, I'm like, oh, I'm not getting guard back.
Yeah,
it's not happening. Like against some of the blue belts, some of them, I can, but man, the purple belt once they get past my legs, I can't counter them. I can't. I suppose. No. I mean, even trying to escape out the back, I have to be faster to once they sink it in, sink that hold down in. I have to it's
and
tough.
what's going to happen eventually is you're gonna find that answer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know,
there'll be an answer. There's an answer. Yeah,
you'll find that answer, and then you're gonna be the guy frustrating blue belts.
Yeah, right.
You know,
it's just
because that was me. That was definitely me, man. When I was a blue belt and going against purple belts.
Yeah,
and once they got past my guard, it was like, man, what am I?
Yeah,
what do I do from here? And it just comes with time
because they all know the tricks.
Yeah,
you know, they all know the little things that judo guys tend to do, especially like the over the head Kata Gatame turnover.
Yeah.
They don't fall for that.
No,
they really don't.
I'll be honest. When I'm rolling, Kata Gatame is. I'm not like crapping on it, but it's one of the last things I'm going to use positioning wise in jiu-jitsu, unless I know that I can finish from there, because there's a few little arm locks that I like to do from Kata Gatame. But other than that, I rarely go there. I really like side control.
A lot of the other purple belts at the club do though, and they're very good at it.
Yeah,
they're
man,
very good.
I mean, I don't like being put in it for sure, because it's not a fun place to be.
Right.
But as far from being the one attacking from Kesa, I have a couple of things that I like to do from there. But normally, if I can get to there, I'm going to transfer to side control.
Yeah.
That cross face, you know.
Yeah, do you know who's really good? Is even though he's a lot bigger than me, but it doesn't matter. Roman is very good at it. Yeah, and I think his name is Will. He's very good at
purple
that.
belt.
Yeah. He's very good at that. I can't once they get, it like I said, it doesn't matter that they're bigger. They know that space. They know how to close that space, right. And they're very good at that.
Yeah.
So. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you coming over and having this discussion. I hope the listeners enjoy it. I'm sure they will, and if they don't, they'll just they'll let me know about it. So any parting words for the audience, Joe?
Hey, get on the mats.
Yeah,
that's all I could say. Judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling,
absolutely,
submission grappling, gi,
sambo.
No-gi, sambo.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll save this for the next time I come on. But your thoughts, and this is something to put in the listeners' minds too. How do you feel about sambo and in its relation with judo and how it fits in?
Yeah, that's a discussion I'd love to have. Yeah. Especially because sambo's known for leg locks.
Yes.
And you've shown me a few leg locks. You certainly know them a lot better than I do. So I would love to bring you back on the podcast and have that kind of discussion. But for now, I think we'll cut it here.
Yep.
And say goodbye to the audience, and we'll leave it at that.
All right.
All right. Take care. Appreciate it.
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan